Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome to the best television show not on TV. This is Authentic in the Beard. This is the parlay, the best division in football, which already had two teams face off on Thanksgiving Day. Get your biscuits, your turkey, your ham, your stuffing, get it all in a bowl, put it in a microwave, and get ready to sit down and talk some fantasy football. It is week 13, ladies and gentlemen. This is a critical week if you're trying to make a push for the playoffs or if you're just trying to win some high score bonuses like the greatest man on earth, my partner, Mr. Authentic. Come on in, talk a little Thanksgiving with me, buddy.
What's cracking, man? I was, I'll say fortunately, working on Thanksgiving with Bleacher Report. Shout out to everybody that tuned into the recap after the Cowboys took care of business against my New York Giants. But nonetheless, we got some good football today. Kind of, I guess, got the day off since I already took care of the Giants stuff on Thursday. A little parlay in the morning. I'm all but eliminated mathematically in my fantasy leagues, but we're still here. We're showing up. We're showing out. We're trying to give the people some good information. But what's popping with you, man?
Nothing much, man. You know, obviously we got the Commanders facing off with the Titans today. Huge game here in D.C. It's a little cold. It's not as cold as I think people thought it was going to be. I was outside doing a little patio work.
You one of them dudes, though. You know y'all white folks. Y'all middle of winter, window down, arm out the window. You know,
I might have the window cracked. That's just the walk on water, the beard thing, right?
I know.
But I'm not one of those guys. Like yesterday, we went and cut our Christmas tree down, and I saw this kid outside at the Christmas tree farm wearing shorts and a t-shirt. I don't understand it.
People be wilding.
He was Caucasian, of course, but
you know, of course he was.
Yeah.
Of course he was. You know us black folk. We ain't messing around with no cold. No, sir.
Not at all. But, it was a fun day of college football. You know, I'm sure Giants fans have their eyes on a couple of guys who played yesterday, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur actually played the day before, but Cam Ward playing yesterday as they lost in an upset to Syracuse. A lot of midfield fighting yesterday. I think there was 3 flag plant fights yesterday that broke out. But, so we're going to be playing for a lot today here as far as fantasy goes. You know, next week is going to be the last week before playoffs go. So I keep an eye on those waiver wires now. You might want to try and get some people to stash for next week because it is going to be a lot of buys next week. I believe my Commanders have a bye next week. So it's going to be quite the interesting setup. Don't forget, if you are in the chat, drop all of your fantasy football questions. We will be answering your questions periodically throughout the show. We're also going to give you guys some people that we think should sit on the bench, some people that you might want to look at as far as sleepers go, and then we will also pick each and every single game on the slate, overs, unders, and the spreads. Without further ado, we got to get to our guy. First and foremost, Mr. Juan Pena with the $1.99 super chat. He wants to know, who should I play at tight end? Taysom, the Beard, kind of plays like the Beard, Hill?
Nah, I'm not giving you that because you've been hating on Taysom Hill ever since we started this podcast. I'm not giving you that one. No, sir.
I mean, he kind of plays like me a little bit, or George Kittle, who kind of looks like me a little bit. So, you know.
This
is a tough one.
This is a tough one. I think I'm going to go Taysom Hill. You got to, capitalize off the big game that he had last week. One of the best games for a tight end in the history of fantasy football. But he's not necessarily a tight end, but he gets the tight end points. So I think I'm going Taysom Hill.
I mean, listen, I say it all the time. Taysom Hill is going to be a boom or bust guy. But when he booms, he booms. And I just think that right now is probably peak Taysom Hill playing situation because they just don't have anybody else. You know, I mean, they got Kamara, obviously, and Valdez-Scantling has been a huge pickup for them off the waiver wires. He's had 2 really big games, but Scantling is not a volume guy. He's going to be a guy that's going to get you 3-4 catches, but it could be 80 to 100 yards and a touchdown or 2. You know, but you're relying on that. With Taysom Hill, ever since all these guys have gone down, it's just they're finding every which way to get him the ball. I mean, he could throw you a touchdown, run you a touchdown, catch you a touchdown, return you a touchdown. I mean, there's all types of things that he can do to get you points. And I'm just worried about San Francisco right now. Everything about San Francisco worries me a little bit. And I think that they're going to have a tough time with Buffalo on Monday night. So I'm going to double down. I'm going to go Taysom Hill as well.
Yeah.
Big shout out also to Juan Pena Jr. Says, hola muchachos. Who for my flex? Breece Hall, who's questionable. Ramondre Stevenson, Jawan Jennings, Taysom Hill, Westbrook, Hill, maybe Justice Hill, or Mooney. And it says his tight end is Kittle. So I guess we kind of are morphing this one in with the last question. So we're going to go ahead and say that you're going to put tight end is going to be Taysom Hill. And then you can kind of, now Kittle is available for your flex. And then the running backs are Kyron, Kenneth Walker, and Ramondre Stevenson. So we basically have to pick one of these guys for the flex position. And just going to be able to pick one guy, which is not going to be easy. There's some names there. I mean, I like Westbrook. I think Westbrook has been playing really good football, and he's kind of flying under the radar. And he's going up against the Commanders' defense, which is always super sketchy. I also really like Darnell Mooney. I'm not going to lie. I mean, you're obviously set at the running back position and the quarterback position. I think you're going to go Kyron and probably Kenneth Walker. But as far as the flex goes, it's just there's a lot of options there. I don't know. I think I might go Mooney.
If Breece Hall's playing, I'd go Breece Hall. I just like that matchup. I think as far as Mooney goes, right, the Falcons are playing. Who the Falcons got this week? Is it the – let me take a look at this real quick. Vikings got the Cardinals, so that matchup's not too terrible.
Falcons are Chargers?
Yeah, Falcons are playing the Chargers.
Chargers defense is really good.
Yeah, and then I just look at the Giants' success against the Seattle Seahawks with Tyrone Tracy. That was like his breakout game. So their rush defense is not all that great. We did play them when they were a little bit banged up, but I like Breece Hall in this matchup if he's healthy.
Yeah, I can see the path there too for Breece Hall. It's just a matter of if he's healthy. That Jets team is just they could just go off at any point in time, right? But they're so inconsistent. It's just a mess over there. So I wouldn't be mad at Breece Hall there, but I do kind of like Darnell Mooney just because he seems to just be the guy that Kirk feeds the ball to a lot. I know that matchup is not as good. So for me, it would really come down to Breece Hall, Mooney, or Westbrook. But I think Breece Hall probably gives you the best volume if he's healthy. Big shout out to Juan. We appreciate it, my friend. Up next, the best name that I can't say. Ubiquitously checking in on Twitch. I nailed it that time, right?
I take it you didn't do too well on the SATs.
This
isn't that difficult of a word.
Ubiquitously.
So ubiquitous, right? Are you familiar with that term?
Ubiquitous, yes.
Ubiquitously. Bong.
Ubiquitously.
This guy.
12 team, half PPR, one wide receiver, one running back.
About to have a kid, man.
One flex. We got Mike Evans, Drake London, Aaron Jones, Jonathan Taylor, Scary Terry. So we got to pick one receiver, one running back, one flex here. We want to start with a running back?
It don't matter. Aaron Jones had a good game last week, despite the fumble. Give me Mike Evans. Give me Aaron Jones for sure. The last one's going to give me Jonathan Taylor in the flex.
I agree with you. Mike Evans, Aaron Jones. The tough one is the flex here. I mean, if we're basing it on matchups, right? Scary Terry and Drake London have extremely difficult matchups. Tennessee Titans allow the fewest passing yards, I believe, in the entire NFL.
That number is very –
yeah.
Shout out to Mina Kimes because that number's sketchy. They're allowing the best field position on special teams of any team by a mile. So teams are having shorter fields to go against the Titans. When you look at their games, their pass defense does not scream top 5 even.
So Drake London might have a tougher matchup per se than Terry McLaurin going up against the Chargers defense. But
yeah.
Jonathan Taylor had a rough week last week. I don't know. Jonathan Taylor might get relied on a little bit more here, especially with the amount of injuries that are on the offensive.
And that was versus Detroit last week, right? The Colts' last game was against Detroit, one of the better run defenses. And you're playing from behind on the scoreboard. I think it was 24-6 late in that game. Like you can't run the ball.
So yeah, we'll go Mike Evans, we'll go Aaron Jones, and we'll go Jonathan Taylor. Big shout out to Door Gunner with a $2 super chat to remind us that Emmanuel Forbes is finally gone, and he was the last one of Ron Rivera's first round draft picks left on the roster. So
crazy.
Yep.
Crazy.
it's been a wild ride here for the draft classes. I mean, it's pretty well known. It's been a dropping of the ball that can only be explained in history books moving forward. But I think Forbes will get picked up on the waiver wire and he'll find a place in the league. I just think maybe a fresh start would be good for him. I think he does have the talent. It just didn't work out for him here in Washington. So best of luck to Emmanuel Forbes. A lot of news coming out of Washington, obviously, with the release of him. Austin Eckler going on the IR, as I predicted would happen. And we're also going to be without one of our tackles today as well. Big shout out to
Forbes. As a New York Giants fan, I would go out there and scoop him up. I mean, he's a first-round talent. He was kind of bubble first-round talent. They felt that Washington did kind of overdraft him a little bit. For me, with him, it just seems to be speed. I think his technique is not terrible, but it just seems that he's always behind the wide receiver getting beat. But I would take a risk on him. Right now the New York Giants need help at the cornerback position with Deonte Banks being our number one, who's more of a number two really right now. Bringing in somebody like Forbes as depth, I don't think would hurt.
Yeah, I think he'll find a place in this league. I really do believe that. And one more time, checking in from Twitch, Mr. Ubiquitously. I hit it on the coffin right there, right?
A little bit. Still a little sketchy landing, but we'll give it to you.
Says that he was able to trade Pickens, Javonte Williams, Jennings for Jones and Pittman to get that running back coverage for Week 14.
I don't know if I like that.
Yeah, that's
George Pickens right now is like one of the true rising stars in the NFL right now. I would have had nothing to do with trading him. I ain't gonna lie. Michael Pittman's relying on Anthony Richardson. That's not that great. And Aaron Jones he's been pretty good over there in Minnesota. I'll give him his props on that. But
yeah, I mean, he was in a tough situation, it sounds like, for Week 14, which, if you're in a must-win situation and you got to, make a sacrifice, you got to make a sacrifice, I guess. But
yeah.
It's going to be tough.
Depth at wide receiver, you should be good.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough week next week, that's for certain. Speaking of tough, we're going to make some tough calls here in this next segment. We are going to talk about some guys that we think should be sitting on the bench here in Week 13 NFL fantasy football. All right, time to make some tough decisions here, Coach Authentic. And we're going to go ahead and let Coach Authentic lead us off here with some people that he is just not going to be able to find some room to play in the game today. Who are those guys going to be?
Yeah, these are guys that if they were on my personal roster, they would probably be in the starting lineup because my fantasy team has been pretty bad this year. But I'm going to start this one off with Geno Smith versus the Jets. I'm definitely sitting him. Has at least one interception in 4 straight games. He's averaging just 16.1 fantasy points per game on the year. 12 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, man. That is unlike Geno. He does have 4 games over 300 yards. 3 of them came in the first 6 weeks of the season. And the Jets defense is pretty damn decent. I know they're without their head coach, who was a very defensive-minded coach. It kind of looks like that was I won't say a mistake in firing him, but definitely not the problem over there with the Jets. But I do think this will be a tough matchup for Geno Smith. I'm also sitting Amari Cooper versus the 49ers. Has just 1 touchdown in his last 6 games. Over 60 yards just 1 time during that span, during those 6 games. 4 receptions in 4 of his last 6. Just 3 total receptions in the past 2 games. So I know he was dealing with a little bit of I think it was a wrist injury or something like that over there. But I'm putting Amari Cooper on the bench. And because of the play of another running back in Tampa Bay, Rachaad White is going to be headed towards the bench for me going up against the Panthers this week. He played just 32 snaps last week. That's his fewest since 2022. Has averaged just 3.2 yards per carry over the past 2 weeks. Bucky Irving averaging over 5 yards per carry during that stretch as well. He does contribute in the passing attack, but the Bucs should be leading and controlling this game if things go according to schedule here. So I got Rachaad on the bench. And another running back that I would throw on the bench here, too, is Ramondre Stevenson going up against the Colts. Has averaged less than 4 yards per carry in the last 6 games. And he played just 42% of the snaps last week, his lowest of the season. He's averaging 7.6 fantasy points over his past 3 games. Hasn't scored a touchdown in 3 straight weeks. Scored just 3.8 points last week. You headed to the bench, Ramondre.
Shout out Antonio Gibson. I'm going to go ahead and double down on the Geno situation. And I think I'm going to put DK Metcalf on the bench. I think Jackson Smith and Jigba has emerged as the guy not. It's tough to say as the guy because you still have Tyler Lockett. DK Metcalf is an alpha wide receiver, right? We know that. But Jackson Smith and Jigba seems to work better in this offense right now. And you talked about, Geno. If we're benching Geno, there's a guy like maybe, DK and Tyler and Tyler Lockett that you kind of just you might want to put on a bench. The Jets have allowed the fewest passing touchdowns of any team in the NFL this year. They've only allowed 8 passing touchdowns all season. They also allow the second fewest yards per game, which is 174.9. DK's only had 300-yard games all year long, and all 3 of those games came, I think, within the first 4 weeks of the season. He also only has 3 touchdowns on the year as well. He did miss like 3 games, but nonetheless, it's just not been a DK sort of year that we're accustomed to seeing him have. So I'm going to bench DK Metcalf. I'm also going to bench Travis Etienne. Tank Bigsby's back. Looks like Trevor Lawrence is back. That offense is an absolute disaster. It's hard for me to find a way to play Travis Etienne. He's going up against the Houston Texans. They have allowed the 6th fewest fantasy points to running backs this season. So I'm going to bench Travis Etienne as well. And this next one's a little tough, but I'm going to go James Conner. I know James Conner has put together a solid fantasy football season, nothing spectacular. Last week was a rough day for him. He only had 7 carries for 8 yards. So he did have 5 catches, which is what makes it so tough in saying to bench James Conner, because he's a guy that if he's not getting it on the ground, he still might be able to find you a way to some points by catching passes out of the backfield. Benson's kind of slowly chomping into that workload as well. He might be a guy that you might want to stash moving forward.
That's my dog.
Yeah, I'm a big Benson guy. I've had him stashed on my bench this entire time, waiting for this playoff run. And then he's going up against the Minnesota Vikings defense. This is the number 1 rush defense in the NFL. They only allow 74.7 yards per game on the ground, and they've also only allowed 5 touchdowns rushing the entire year, which is the fewest, tied for the fewest in the National Football League. So those are the guys that I'm going to be sitting on the bench this week. I see Monique in the chat says, I need the beer to do whatever needs to be done to lose this week in fantasy. So there is a lot of fight for playoff spots here in that league. I think I'm currently sitting at
Last
8
time we
4.
went against somebody who got the bag, it was me. It was Chuba Hubbard.
Yeah.
And he went absolutely crazy. James Conner did just get paid. I think it was like $20 or $21 million on a 3-year extension. Watch him go crazy today.
So should I just slide him in a couple of DraftKings lineups just in case today?
Yep. Might want to move him over to the sleeper section.
Speaking of the sleeper section, let's go ahead and jump into some sleepers for this week. Don't forget, if you guys have any fantasy football questions, drop those in the chat. We will answer them right after we get through this week's sleepers. All right, I'm going to start this one off with a little dual package here, okay? So for those of you that know, or maybe you don't know, J.K. Dobbins, fantastic comeback story this year, after another devastating injury in Baltimore, finding his way in a new home here in Los Angeles in the Chargers. He has landed on the IR, okay? And it is a tough situation. So immediately, everybody's running to the waiver wires and they're picking up Gus, okay? The Gus bus, right? The Gus bus is a good, solid running back. But is the Gus bus really the Greyhound of running backs? That's the question, right? But we don't really know what kind of workload Gus is going to be taking on with the absence of J.K. Dobbins. There are 2 running backs behind Gus for the Chargers, okay? Their names are Kamani Vidal and Hassan Reddick, okay? Very, very important to keep your eye on the backfield for the Chargers, because I'll tell you right now, 90% of the leagues, probably everybody picked up Gus Edwards, right? I think that's probably what happened. But there is a good chance that one of these other 2 guys sneaks in and becomes more of the workhorse in that backfield as opposed to Gus Edwards. And remember, Hassan Reddick was a Michigan running back. So he has connection to Harbaugh. Harbaugh had a lot of good things to say about Hassan Reddick this week as well. Hassan Reddick is currently listed as the third running back on the depth chart, but we've seen this time and time again where running back goes down, and then all of a sudden you get all types of random running backs coming out of the backfield and taking carries. So 2 names to keep your eye on there. Up next, I'm going to go with a guy I've talked about.
Before you move on, I'd say Gus is more like a Greyhound bus because he's not an everyday type of running back. He's not an every down type of running back. He's not a yellow school bus. He's more the Greyhound, right? Where when you need a weekend trip, get you to where you need to get to, he going to get you there.
Okay.
But the question should be, is he the everyday type of bus?
Yeah. Well,
like
I just used
bus.
the wrong bus there in that analogy. So, but that was the point I was making.
I know.
I just should have just went with school bus. I didn't think about the school bus.
Yeah.
That's a good one right there. But that's my concern. I feel like he's more of a 9 carry, 4 catch sort of back.
Goal line stuff.
But Hassan Reddick might be the sleeper of the bunch here. Vidal's shown some flashes.
If you had to pick one, you'd go Hassan Reddick.
I would think I would go Hassan Reddick. Just based upon the Harbaugh connection, the way Harbaugh talked about him, I think that might
NFL experience too.
Yeah, exactly. Played with the Titans. For those of you that might not remember Hassan Reddick, but
I feel like
it's
he
going
was
to be
with Detroit. I feel like he was with Detroit as well for a while there.
He might have been with Detroit after Tennessee because I think he got cut in Tennessee because he had some legal troubles.
I'd say maybe the Raiders, maybe.
But yeah, so we're going deep power nap here when it comes to these sleepers. This is like in one of those movies where you see those characters get hit with a needle.
Wait. I'm looking up Hassan Reddick, the edge rusher. I'm tripping. Which Reddick are we talking about here? Theo Reddick.
Am I messing up my man's name?
I mean, the Hassan Reddick I know was the dude that played with the Eagles for a while that led them in sacks off the edge. Theo Riddick, maybe?
No,
I think you think about
no.
Theo went to Notre Dame. Is he Hassan as well?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's Hassan as well.
Let me look him up.
Running back.
I'm thinking about the running back out of Notre Dame. I'm thinking about Theo Riddick.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, the only running back I know. Well, let me look at it from a depth chart perspective on
I butchered my man's name.
Who was it?
I thought it was Hassan Reddick.
Yeah, it's not. Hassan, was the dude that held out with the Jets this year. That's Hassan. He led the Eagles in sacks.
Chargers,
this is
depth chart.
Hassan Haskins.
Haskins. Man.
Good thing I stopped you on that too.
Hassan Haskins.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's relatively young. That's not who I was thinking about. Okay.
But yeah, he
drafted
was in
by
Tennessee
and then didn't play last year.
I'm just so used to saying Hassan Reddick rolling off the tongue. I didn't even put 2 and 2. Hassan Haskins. Okay.
That's not the. Oh yeah. So look, let me tell you how I remember this dude you talking about now. It's funny how the memory works. When Malik Willis was with the Titans, I believe, in the preseason, he was there in 2023. And there was a broadcaster that kept making the mistake of calling Malik Willis Dwayne Haskins because Hassan Haskins was in the backfield and Malik was wearing the same number. So he kept calling him.
You were so upset about that.
I was so upset. He did it like 4 times in the game. That might have been at the beginning of this season, actually. He might have started off the year with the Titans. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm remembering who he was. Okay, makes sense.
So, and once again, the connection is there because he was a very successful running back in college at Michigan with Harbaugh. So he has that connection. And Harbaugh said that, was raving about his athleticism, his speed, his toughness this week during the press conferences when they were asking about, how they were going to handle the backfield moving forward. So Hassan Haskins, not Reddick, and Kamani Vidal, don't forget about him. He could be a possibility. But the whole thing is you want to watch that Chargers backfield in this game. Obviously they're going up against the Falcons, so their defense is probably top 3 worst defenses in the NFL right now. So you're going to see a lot. Might not necessarily mean moving forward, But when you're going into the week 14, you want to have as much edge as possible. And these two guys could be a savior depending on how that bulk of the running back carries goes in this game and moving forward.
Absolutely.
The next guy that I'm going to talk about is a guy I talked about on this show before a couple of times, is Devon Vele out of Denver Broncos wide receiver. He is really getting better and better and better. Last week he had 9 targets, 6 catches for 90 yards. He's had 3 straight games with at least 4 receptions. He's had 2 straight games with at least 50-plus yards. He's going up against Cleveland, and Cleveland allows the 5th most fantasy points to wide receivers. So I think that this is going to be an interesting matchup. I think that game's going to be kind of fun to watch anyways. So he's definitely emerged as wide receiver number 2 in Denver, right behind Courtland Sutton. They have some other guys over there as well. Little Jordan Humphreys, Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin. But I like Vele a lot in that situation, and he has been producing over the course of the last couple of weeks. And the last guy I'm going to talk about is going to be Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver, Indianapolis Colts. This week, no Josh Downs, no Doolin. So, they're already down 2 wide receivers right there. Then you got Alec Pierce is coming in with a banged up ankle. He's questionable. I'm sure the inactives and actives are going to come out here in a couple of minutes. And then you're going to have Christian Gonzalez probably playing on Michael Pittman in this game. So the opportunity is going to be there. And what's interesting is the New England Patriots run a lot of man coverage. They run the 2nd most man in the entire league, 40.2%. And against man coverage, Mitchell, his target rate is 43.2%, and his points per route is 0.49. So he's almost averaging a half of a point every route that he runs against man coverage. So this is going to be an opportunity for him, and he hasn't had a lot of opportunities this year. He was a guy, I think a lot of people, where he was on their radar, especially, in deeper leagues and sleeper leagues and rookie leagues and stuff like that. He's a very talented wide receiver, so I think this could be a breakout game for him, given all of these injuries and the opportunity defensively that he's going to be facing. So those are my 3 sleepers this week.
I like it. I had Rachaad White in the sit-em section, so Bucky Irving definitely here in the sleepers has 50% of the snaps with Rachaad White healthy for the first time last week, so that's never happened. Panthers are allowing the most fantasy points to running backs on the season, so I like Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving is looking like he's going to be running back 1 over there here shortly. I like Ladd McConkey going up against the Atlanta Falcons as well too, man. And Ladd was a guy that was, I was a little bit lower on Ladd McConkey coming out of the draft than a lot of people were, because this was a guy that didn't have that many receptions coming out of Georgia. I think he only had like 38 receptions on a year. So for me, it's like I didn't have the volume of tape. But the Falcons have allowed the 4th most fantasy points to wide receivers this season. Ladd McConkey played a career high 86% of the snaps last week. He has 6 receptions in each of the last 2 games. And for me, it's the way that the percentage of passes that he is catching. He's caught 14 of his 17 targets over the past 3 games while averaging 20 yards per reception over those 3-game spans. 0 touchdowns in the last 4 games, just 4 on the year. I expect him to get in the end zone this week. I also like Calvin Ridley, another guy quietly going under the radar here, going up against the Commanders. He has 451 yards since week 8. That's the 4th most in the NFL. Minus touchdowns. The Commanders have given up an average of 11 points to wide receiver 1s this year without touchdowns. So if he can get in the end zone, this could be a huge day for Calvin Ridley. He has just 1 touchdown in just 2 games this season. So, that's not a good look for him. He's not a guy that's scoring a lot of touchdowns. He only has 3 on the season. I think in one of those games he scored 2 touchdowns, and he has a touchdown in just 1 of his last 9 games. I think he gets in the end zone today as well. We talked about Taysom Hill a little bit earlier in the podcast. Taysom Hill, literally is coming off the best game by a tight end in the history of fantasy football, 46.8 points. He had 8 receptions for 50 yards, 7 rushes for 138 yards. You've never seen a tight end go for 100 yards on the ground, I guarantee you that. He completed a pass of 18 yards as well, and he scored 3 touchdowns in 1 damn game. So, just like we were telling the homie, ride the high. Taysom Hill is definitely a guy, now that the Saints are dealing with so many injuries, I would toss him in the lineup here. And I got a couple other guys, too. I like Courtland Sutton. You talked about the other wide receiver with the Broncos. I like Courtland Sutton going up against the Browns. No player has more receiving yards in the entire NFL since week 8. He has 467 receiving yards since week 8. He's averaging over 9 targets, 93 yards per game over the last 5 weeks. He had a season-high 29.7 points last week versus the Raiders. The Browns have allowed 7 wide receivers to go over 16 points in their last 6 games, and Sutton has over 70 yards in all of his last 5 games and 2 100-yard performances on the year. It's crazy that he's a guy that was kind of like forgotten about, if you ask me, and now he's a guy that I think is getting back to that wide receiver 1 type of productivity. You kind of briefly mentioned Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I just want to throw some numbers out there about him as well, too. 65% of the snaps in the Saints' last game. He has 42.6 fantasy points combined over the last 2 games. The Rams have allowed the second most deep passing touchdowns this season. And you talked about Marquez Valdes-Scantling being a guy that he's not getting the volume. He's more of a big play type of guy. He has at least 1 touchdown in his last 2 games, and that's only coming off of 5 receptions in the last 2 games for 196 yards, 3 touchdowns in those last 2 games. So I really like him. And the last guy, my favorite player in the entire NFL right now, Jameis Winston. If you need a quarterback going up against the Broncos, 14.6 points last week in a damn blizzard, okay, where we couldn't even see the ball on the broadcast. That speaks volumes to me when a guy can get it done in dirty conditions like that. 32 points versus the Saints the previous week. Then he put up 26.8 against the Baltimore Ravens. Yeah, Jameis Winston, my favorite player. Jameis Winston is a national treasure, as a lot of people have been talking about. And listen, he's the best football player the game has ever seen. Big shout out to Jameis Winston.
Big shout out. We're a big fan of Jameis here at Authentic.
Absolutely, man. That's my dog. Listen, crossing my fingers that he will be the Giants starting quarterback come week 1, 2025.
I think I read something where he said he wants to stay. He would like to stay in Cleveland for.
Well, that's too bad because Jameis, you are a Giant.
Speaking of the Giants, big shout out to Max Webster in the building. Says pick 2 running backs and a flex. He's got James Cook, Bucky Irving, I almost said Chase Brown, Terry McLaurin, and Mike Evans.
Okay, 2 and a flex.
I think
I'm not liking Chase Brown as much. Right? I think we're going to go Mike Evans, yeah. No Chase Brown. What's my man coming back today? Who's really the primary running back over there?
Moss.
Zach Moss is coming back, so I don't like Chase Brown for a big game.
Pittsburgh's defense.
And that defense. So rule him out. Give me Cook, give me Irving, give me Evans.
Yep, I'm right there with you. Cook, Irving, and Mike Evans for that lineup right there. Big shout out to Sarah checking in the building. CJ Stroud, Authentic's favorite quarterback in fantasy football this year. And I
got numbers to support this one too.
And Drake May. I'll tell you this. I think Drake May is kind of a sleeper quarterback this week, but CJ Stroud's going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I feel like this is a big CJ Stroud game incoming. So I as much as I like Drake May's sleepability in this week, I'm going to go CJ Stroud.
Yeah, I'm going Stroud too. And I figured out what was wrong with CJ Stroud is when you don't have no Nico Collins on the field. His fantasy points per game go up by about 7 points per game when Nico Collins is on the field. So, you know, he's been missing them for however many weeks he was on IR and some. And now that he's back in the lineup, going up against the Jags, the Jags might be the worst defense in the league. I'm definitely going CJ Stroud today.
And then another one from Sarah. She's listening to all of this Taysom Hill talk, and she wants to know, Taysom Hill over Hunter Henry then?
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Ride the wave?
Ride the wave.
I mean, Hunter Henry's a solid 6 to 9 pointer, right? Like, I mean, it depends on what kind of situation you're in. See, this is an interesting week because there's a lot of possibilities that, you know, your opponent has played a lot of minutes already, given that we've had 4 games up to this point. Yep. So you kind of, in some cases, you might have a little bit of an edge going into Sunday, because either you know how many points you need to get out of certain positions, or you know where your opponent is standing after 4 games have already been played. Typically, we go into a Sunday and there's only been 1 game, so there's a lot of action off the board already. So you can kind of gauge if you need a safe play like a Hunter Henry, or if you were like, I need to catch up on some points, I'm going to go ahead and throw Taysom Hill in the mix. But I think we're going to ride the wave. We're going to both double down with Taysom Hill in this situation. Big shout out to Corey Robinson checking in, says, just tuned in, fellas. What up, what up? Playoffs are on the line. Would you start Kyler Murray or Anthony Richardson?
Anthony Richardson should have a pretty decent day today. The Patriots defense is pretty good, but they do allow people to walk them down the field. I think that Kyler's the safer bet, though. I really do. But the Vikings defense is strong. I mean, that's going to be a tough matchup for Kyler. I don't think you can go wrong either way.
Yeah.
I would take the risk on Anthony Richardson getting into the end zone with his legs a couple times today.
I think I'm gonna double down with that too. If I know like a lot of people don't believe in matchups, right? And the weather might be sketchy in New England.
Are there a lot of people that don't believe in matchups? That's ridiculous.
Yeah, some people think that you shouldn't always base your plays based upon matchups, right?
Yeah.
Because and a little bit more so in individual matchups. Let me double down in that aspect, right? Where it's like, don't play Mike Evans if he's playing Marshawn Lattimore. That sort of situation, right? But sometimes in these matchups, like Minnesota's defense is really good. New England's defense is okay. The weather is going to be better in the Minnesota game than it is going to be in the Colts game. Kyler can get you yards on the ground, but Kyler doesn't run like he used to when it comes to, putting points on the board fantasy-wise. I think Anthony Richardson, what you said about getting impossible 2 touchdowns out of Anthony Richardson in the goal line is a lot more feasible than Kyler Murray, and that might be the difference between these two players. The only thing I'm worried about with Anthony Richardson is
throwing the ball.
And not
2
having
games in his entire career over 50% completion percentage, man. He is not throwing the ball well.
Not having Josh Downs either in this matchup.
It don't matter when you're inaccurate, right? When you can't throw the ball, the
so
receivers don't matter.
I don't know if we're talking our way into Kyler Murray here or not.
I'm still
anymore.
going AR.
We're
because,
going AR?
Listen, like, Brian Flores knows how to present. Shout out to Sarah, too. She knows this. Brian Flores he's not what you would call a quarterback's dream. He's a quarterback's nightmare. And all quarterbacks that have gone up against him this year have spoke about it after the game. I mean, you saw Brock Purdy talking about it after the game. We saw when Daniel Jones went up against him week 1. It was terrible. So for me, it's just that the matchup is what matters the most. I think that the Vikings defense is that good.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and give you Anthony Richardson there, Corey. Hopefully that helps you. And our
some inactives here, or some actives as well. Did somebody post them in the chat yet?
No, I haven't seen Marjorie here today.
Okay, so Trevor Lawrence is active. Breece Hall is active. Alec Pierce is active. DJ Chark is active, and Demario Douglas is active. For the Steelers defensively, Alex Highsmith is going to be inactive today.
All right. Now, you know what's interesting? Who is not even on the injury report this week? Brian Robinson. Not on.
So he good to go?
Good to go.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Big shout out to Sarah. She got finally landed her favorite quarterback. Picking up Daniel Jones. All right, this is our point of the show where we get our weekly Jaden Daniels questions. Joe Burrow or Jaden Daniels? Burrow going up against Steelers.
Ooh, tough, but it's Joe Burrow. I'm going Burrow.
Listen, I would. There's no consistency right now with Jaden Daniels in that offense where I can. You want to talk about matchup proof? I think Joe Burrow's matchup proof. Right? Joe Burrow's going to throw no matter what.
I mean, unless he's playing the New York Giants, right? Might leave the game with 0 passing touchdowns.
Yeah, but he ran for like a 60-yard touchdown.
Yeah, is that enough?
Yeah.
Is the question. But Jaden Daniels, more importantly, at home. That's been the issue. Was it three touchdowns at home all year long?
I think we're going Joe Burrow here, Kevin. Up next, our guy, C-Benz, never stayed lacking 45.
Hey, things are going to get real dicey for y'all if y'all win this game. I'm just saying.
You don't got to tell me, man. It got dicey last week, bro. We've been rolling dice for 3 weeks now.
Yeah.
You
crapped out last week. I don't know how y'all did that against the Cowboys. I don't understand how that happened, but
I thought we were going to talk about that anymore.
There's this guy, he's the co-host of this show called, Saquon and the Beard. I mean, he's been saying it for a while here about Jaden, at home and about the Washington Commanders, maybe, just maybe, not being as good of a team as a lot of people think.
I think you might be right, my friend. But I am faced with this issue every week, and unfortunately, the team that I have 7 fantasy teams this year, money leagues. I have 1 team that has a losing record. and it is a team that has Josh Allen and Jaden Daniels on the roster. The rest of that roster just fizzled and bombed on me. But I still play. I play with heart and pride, and I'm starting Josh Allen over Jaden Daniels this week.
Yeah,
I noticed. I saw the radar. I checked in with Tim's Weather Center, and it looks like there's a southwest wind coming off of the lake effect snow in Buffalo, which is pushing that system south of Buffalo, which may make that game a lot more less blizzard-like conditions tonight. So I think Josh Allen has a good game tonight. And do you start McLaurin in the flex? It depends who else you have. I wouldn't. But every time I don't start Terry McLaurin, he has like 30 points. Every time
he does have that
start
capability to make the big play, get you a good 3-4 catches, 400 yards. I mean, it does depend who else you got.
Yeah, so I would tread lightly with Terry McLaurin this week. And then Sarah, one more question before we get into picking these games. Why did the Commanders release Forbes? He didn't fit their system. Wasn't the type of player that they were looking for. I think they gave him a shot. Didn't seem to catch on to the scheme, and there
I
might
think it's
be
deeper than that, man.
Yeah, I mean,
What do y'all tend to run? More zone or more man?
I mean, it's more of a zone, but
that's more of a reason that he should be able to fit the system. Because like if you can't play zone in the NFL, you aren't an NFL corner. We've seen corners who have no speed. Guys like Richard Sherman made a living in zone defense. You know, it's not like they're asking this guy to go out there and play one-on-one coverage. You know, I'd have to dig into the tape a little bit more. I think it's just a skill set thing. I don't think it's a scheme fit. I think that they deem him as not good enough. And honestly, his play on the field has looked like that. This dude, every time he's on the field, whether it have been in preseason in the joint practices, I believe it was against the Jets, getting cooked by Garrett Wilson, to then getting in the game randomly, still getting cooked. This guy has not had a good career, and I don't think it's a scheme fit thing. I think it's a player that has not lived up to the first round pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is obvious, but I think what they're gonna give you is, you know, like he wasn't what they want in a cornerback, basically.
Yeah,
whether it's
I think
production,
that's more what I was saying. It's like he's just not good enough. Just not good enough. Like we've seen this with. It reminds me of Amani Oruwariye with the Detroit Lions, where it's like this dude had the skill set coming out. People thought he was going to be a solid corner. I think he was drafted in like the second round, and it just never panned out. And then you just bounce around the league, and all these other teams have to find out the hard way that maybe you just ain't good enough.
And obviously the trade for Lattimore, and I think the uptick in productivity from Sarenstill, that it's giving them the opportunity to move on.
Oh yeah, they're drafting over you. They're bringing in, trading players in over you, and he's one of the few players left from that previous regime. I mean, you got who else is there? Terry McLaurin, St-Juste, Emmanuel Forbes.
Those guys weren't even. They were inherited by Ron Rivera and them too. They weren't drafted by Rivera. So I think Forbes was he's definitely the last first round pick over the last 4 years. Every first round pick over the last 4 years outside of Jaden Daniels is no longer here.
Yeah.
They're all been either traded or cut.
Was Chris Rodriguez last year's draft or the draft before that?
He was the draft 2 years before ago.
That. Yeah, so he's a part of that regime. It's not many. It's not many players.
Brian Robinson.
Yeah, B. Rob in the third round.
Yeah. So I think they said that there's only 14 players left from on the entire roster.
Yeah,
from
make it 13 now. Make it 13.
Yeah, so it's pretty crazy. But big shout out to Sarah. We appreciate you as always. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Speaking of the Commanders, they will be up in the mix here on this next edition of Rapid Fire. As soon as I say that, I just hear the Crossfire commercial in my head.
Crossfire. The good old days, man.
Crossfire.
When it wasn't relying upon iPads and all this stupid shit these kids are birthed into.
Like you could sit down and play Crossfire right now, and it would be fun.
Yeah. For about a good 20 minutes, and then you'd be like, okay, I get it. Hungry hippos, shit like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But it's time. Those games probably shouldn't be around. I mean, there's a lot of pieces in there that kids can choke on and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's a tough, different time now. You know, we were growing up in the '90s and '80s. It was a wild, wild west for the kids. You know what I'm
It
saying?
definitely was. It's worse now though. I mean, I was with Pat the other day talking about these dudes in DC. Literally, they got footage of these kids armed carjacking somebody, right? They're like 11 years old, bro.
Yeah.
Pulling out a gun half their size. I'm like, glad I ain't come up in that era. I didn't have to worry about getting shot in the 7th grade. Tell you that much.
Oh, that was not a thing. It was more of a.
That was not a thing. Yeah. If you got into a fight by the time you got to 7th grade, I mean, that was even like, oh, man, dude got in a fight. All right. Now these dudes is out here pulling up with the pistol at age 12. Come on, bro. 2 12-year-olds, I think it was, that robbed this dude in DC.
I saw the story. It's time to get out. Time to get out. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to pick each and every single game that is left on the slate. We have already played 4 games so far this week. We're going to give you the overs, the unders, and the spreads for each and every game. And no, Kevin, we are not going to even talk about William Jackson. My God. All right. First game on the slate is H-Town. The Houston Texans, they are 7-5. They're 3.5-point favorites. Seems a little low to me. They are headed to Duval to face the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are 2-9 and need a win for the New York Giants fans. The over-under is 43.5. Kickoff is at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Authentic, tell me what you got.
I'm taking the Texans to cover, and I'll take that over 43.5 here to start this off.
I'm right there with you. I'm going to take Texans to cover. I'll take the over 43.5 as well. I think Jacksonville finds a way. Brian Thomas Jr. probably anytime touchdown in this game. I think that might be a good bet.
I like that.
Up next, the Indianapolis Colts. They are 5-7. They are 2.5-point favorites. They are headed up to New England to face the Patriots, who are 3-9. Over under in this game is 42.5. Kickoff is at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I think this game is going to be fun.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be fun. Drake May, Anthony Richardson.
Tough pick.
Give me the Colts to win. Patriots to cover. Over 42.5. 1-point victory for the Indianapolis Colts. That's living on the edge.
I'm going with the Patriots here for the dub here one time. I will take the 24-10. I'm going to take the under 42.5.
Up next, this is an interesting matchup. The Los Angeles Chargers. They're 7-4. They are there's a lot of these funky spreads this week. They are 1.5-point favorites in Atlanta. The Falcons are 6-5. Over under in this game is 47.5. Kickoff is at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Atlanta Falcons defense stinks. Give me the Chargers to win. Chargers to cover. I'm going to go under 47.5.
It's a tough one right here. The Falcons need this win badly. I know they're sitting atop the NFC South right now, but the Bucs are on their heels right now. They're going to need this victory. But I'm going to go with the Chargers as well. I think they'll cover the 1.5. Give me under 47.5.
Up next, the Seattle Seahawks. A lot of benching going on in fantasy here between Authentic and the Beard. They're 6-5. They're 1.5-point favorites on the road against the Jets, who are quite possibly the most disappointing team in the NFL this year. They are 3-8. The over-under in this game is 42.5. Kickoff is at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Authentic, tell me what you got.
The Jets are the most disappointing team this year. I mean, as far as like teams that had playoff aspirations and trying to, be better than what they were last year after they lost Aaron Rodgers, you would have thought this team would have had it, been somewhere near 500. Sitting at 3-8 is really tough here. I don't think the Seattle Seahawks are that really good of a team either. But I'm going to take the Seahawks in this one. I'll take them to cover the 1.5 as well. And I'll go over the 42.5 on this one.
I get burned by the Jets every time I pick them to win. I'm going to go Seahawks. Seahawks to win. Seahawks to cover. Give me the under 42.5 in this matchup. Up next, speaking of must wins, the Tennessee Titans are 3-8. They are headed to Landover, Maryland, Northwest Stadium to face the Washington Commanders.
No
it's just all
it's all don't
They're
make no sense.
7-5. They're favored by 6.5 points in this game, which I think is a little high. Over under is 44.5. Kickoff is at 1:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Listen, we didn't get a chance to talk about this game as we were off for Thanksgiving. I'll give you a quick little rundown. I think the Commanders really need to get back to fundamentals. It's tough because I think Jaden Daniels needs to be unleashed. I'm sure most of you heard the Micah Parsons comments on his podcast where he said that, nothing but amazing things to say about Jaden Daniels, but thinks that they should be playing more like how they played on that last drive and towards the end of the game throughout the entire game. There's parts of that I agree with. I think they need to get back to fundamentals. They really need to get better offensively as far as consistency goes. They got to try and run the ball. Let Jaden Daniels throw the rock a little bit. It's not going to be an easy matchup against the Tennessee Titans. I do think the Commanders come away with a victory. I think the Titans cover. I think this game is going to be close throughout most of the game. I'm going to go 27-22 Washington.
I'm curious as to what Micah Parsons was saying by the end of the game because for me, it has nothing to do with Jaden Daniels. You look at the 2 interceptions in last week's game; those weren't on him really. Yeah. One at the end of the game, one on a screen pass that should have been caught. It accounted for over 370-something yards of offense. It's everybody else, if you ask me. Get that running game going. Brian Robinson struggled with the ankle injury last week. Hopefully, he's 100% healthy because I do feel like he is the gas that makes the engine go in Washington. But that's really what it is. Your defense has been playing, better than a lot of people thought they would play this season. And I think it's going to have to continue. You're going to have to hold the Tennessee Titans under 20 points. If Tennessee gets over 20, I think Washington's going to be in for a loss here. I really want to pick the Titans, I'm not going to lie, just off the strength of the way that the Commanders have played at home this year, just struggling in multiple games, the Chicago Bears game being one of them, the New York Giants game being another, and Jaden Daniels just not being able to get the ball in the end zone at home as much as he does on the road, but still playing really sound football throughout. I guess I got to go with the Commanders in this one. I'll pick the Titans to cover. I think this game will be something like 23-19 or something like that in favor of the Washington Commanders. I'll take the under 44.5.
All right, up next, this should be a good, fun matchup, AFC Central. Pittsburgh Steelers, 8-3. Don't you love it when I call it the Central?
AFC Central.
They're headed to Cincinnati to face the Joe Burrow Bengals, who are 4-7. They're 3-point favorites. Over-under in this game is a little high, 46.5. Kickoff is at 1:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Authentic, tell me what you got.
I'm going to go over the 46.5 just to start off here. The Pittsburgh Steelers their offense has been clicking as of late. With Russell Wilson in the lineup, I mean, they're pretty much bound to score at least a good 20, 21, 24 points at bare minimum, it seems like. So I will take the over 46.5. Tough game. Joe Burrow's going to play his tail off in this one, watch. And it will still amount to a loss, most likely. Just been losing some tough games this year. He did say just a couple of weeks ago, man, they pretty much got to run the table if they want to have any shot at some playoffs. I'm going to pick the Bengals in an upset in this one. I just think that there will be that dire need for them to get the W. So give me the Bengals.
3 points is weird.
I'm going to say the Pittsburgh Steelers cover the 3 points. I think this will be a 1-point game. And, yeah, give me the over 46.5.
I'm almost exactly there with you. Listen, you guys know I've been talking about Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh is one of the best teams in the league. Not a lot of people believe that, including my host here. But I'm going with the Bengals. I like the Bengals in this game. I think the Bengals cover. I also think it's a 1-point game, but I'm going to go under the 46.5. That's
Gotcha.
The only difference there. Up next, a game we ended up talking a lot about so far today. Arizona Cardinals, they're 6-5. They're headed to Minnesota to face the Vikings, who are 9-2. Vikings are 3.5-point favorites. Over/under in this game is 44.5. Kickoff is at 1:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I feel like Minnesota's been playing a lot of low-scoring games lately. Maybe that's just my mind speaking to me, but I feel like that's been the case. I'm going to take the Vikings to win. I'm going to take the Cardinals. No, I'm not. I was disappointed in the way the Cardinals played last week against the Seattle Seahawks. Give me the Vikings to win, Vikings to cover, and I'm going to take the under 44.5.
I like it. I'm locked in with you. I just wanted to look up some of the last couple of games from the Minnesota Vikings just to see their scores here. So last week with Chicago was a bit of a high scoring game, 30-27 in overtime. Then they beat the Titans 23-13, 12-7 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. That was when they were struggling. 21-13 against the Colts. Outside of that, they've scored over 25 points in every single game except the Jets game where they scored 23. So give me the over. I'll be locked in with you, but I'm gonna take the over. I still think Minnesota wins. Minnesota covers.
Up next, the Los Angeles Rams. They're 5-6. They're 2.5-point favorites. They're headed down to New Orleans to face the Saints, who are 4-7. Over under is 49.5. Kickoff is at 4:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Authentic, tell me what you got.
Rams last week against the Eagles, they were fighting. They were trying to stay close, but the Eagles proved to be just a better team late in that game. I think that the Rams are a better team than the Saints right now, especially considering all the injuries that the Saints have had this year. Give me the Rams. Give me the Rams to cover the 2.5. I'm going to take under 49.5.
I also like the Rams. I'm going to take the Rams. Rams to win. Rams to cover, but give me the over 49.5. I think we get a little bit of a shootout here in New Orleans. Up next, I think might be a sneaky fun game. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're 5-6, 5.5-point favorites. Headed to Carolina to face Mr. Bryce, who's been playing very well as of late, considering where he was in the beginning of this year. Over under in this game is 46.5. Kickoff is at 4:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to take Tampa Bay to win this game. I'm going to take Carolina to cover. And I'm going to take the over 46.5.
I'll take the over 46.5. The Bucs are going to blow out the Carolina Panthers today. This should be a staple game for them to let people know they're getting back into the right track. Mike Evans back in the lineup. Bucky Irvin been playing really good football. Baker Mayfield, just the mechanics, man. I got to watch that whole game last week, and Baker Mayfield's mechanics are just, yeah, man, he's on 100 right now. I think he's playing some really good football, probably the best football of his career. So I think the Bucs are going to walk the Panthers today, but give me the over 46.5 in this one.
Baker Mayfield revenge game here too. Let's not forget about that.
Mm-hmm.
And let's be honest, ladies and gentlemen, this is we could go without any of these other games at this point and just watch this next game. That's going to be the Philadelphia Eagles, who are 9-2. Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown. They're headed to Baltimore, face Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers. Ravens are 3-point favorites. Over under in this game, highest on the slate at 50.5. Kickoff is at 4:25 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This one's tough. This is tough because I listen. We don't like to pick against Baltimore a lot here. Right? We're big Lamar guys. We're believers in what this team is doing. But right now at this point in the season, I think the Eagles are the better team. I'm going to take the Philadelphia Eagles to win this game outright. That over-under is staring at me right now. Like, I want to say that this game is over. I'm going to take the over. Give me Philly to win and, the over.
They got Baltimore by 3. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough game to pick. I think Baltimore's lost a few too many games, and hopefully this is behind them, but a few too many games to inferior opponents, where the Eagles, that's not the case with them. This 7-game winning streak, 5 of them 7 teams have been under 500, and they just handled business the way that they should. I don't think the Eagles are a better team than the Ravens right now. I could see the case for it, though. I really could. Tough pick here, man. Tough pick here.
For Ben reminded me too about the Lamar NFC stat.
Yeah, he's undefeated against the NFC outside of the one game versus Daniel Jones and the Giants in 2022. I'm going Baltimore, man. I'm going Baltimore. And let me tell you why. I think that Saquon will still have a good game, but I don't think we're going to see one of those crazy lights out 150 or more yards on the ground from Saquon today. I think we're going to see around 90 to 100 possibly. And I just think that the Ravens are a little bit better built for this weather. Like, you stepped outside today. It's not necessarily football weather out there right now. It's kind of cold out there. And I just think the Ravens are built better for this type of weather, this type of month in the season as well. Derrick Henry's probably going to have a huge game, and then that X factor of having Lamar Jackson be able to add to the rushing game, I think is going to be a little bit more of an asset for the Ravens than it is with Jalen Hurts being a rushing quarterback for the Eagles. I really want to pick the Eagles. I mean, 7 straight wins, they're on fire right now. I'm going to go with the Ravens as the better bird today. I'll take the Ravens to cover the 3. I'm going over what was it, 50 and a half?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go over that.
Who do you think has more rushing yards, Derrick Henry or Saquon Barkley?
Derrick Henry, I think. Yeah.
Okay. And then the night game, which could potentially be another primetime snow game. San Francisco 49ers are 5-6. Ooh. They're headed to Buffalo. Josh Allen just got engaged. Bills are 9-2, 6.5-point favorites. Over under is 44.5. Kickoff is at 8:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Authentic. Tell me what you got.
Look, this is the team, the San Francisco 49ers, that you guys need to keep your eyes on. I think that this is the team that if they make a run, they're going to possibly put the Washington Commanders out of the playoffs. And now, looking at the numbers last week and the playoff picture last week, the Commanders were sitting in that 7th spot. You got 3 teams that are likely going to make it out of the NFC North. So this is the team that I think you got to worry about as far as, taking that 7th spot here. This is a tough game here. I'm going with the Buffalo Bills. I think they're the better team, the more healthy team right now. I'll take the over 44.5. I don't think the Bills cover the 6.5, though.
Ooh. Give me the Bills to win. I'll take San Francisco to cover the 6.5, but I'm going to go under 44.5. I think this not necessarily because of the weather. San Francisco is just, I don't know. I have a lot of questions about San Francisco right now, and I don't think we know if Brock Purdy's playing or not. I think he's been practicing. I think his shoulder has been improving, but I'm a little skeptical about this San Francisco offense. So I'm going to take the under 44.5. And then, thanking the football gods, we get another prime time game with Jameis Winston. Which is, I think everybody can agree is going to be awesome in itself. I think this is Bo Nix's first primetime game, if I'm not mistaken. So I think there's a lot of intrigue around this game. The Denver Broncos are 7-5. They're 5.5-point favorites. Cleveland 3-8. Over under is 42.5. Kickoff is at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Authentic, tell me what you got.
It's not about the lights, Beard.
No.
It's not about the cameras, Beard.
Nope.
It's not about the action, Beard.
Definitely not.
It's about the action, Beard.
The action.
It's about our action.
All
right. I'm going Jameis Winston and the Cleveland Browns today over the Denver Broncos. I know the Broncos defense balling out. I know Courtland Sutton been doing his thing. I know that Bo Nix been a sleeper for the past 3 weeks on this show. Going with the best player in all of football, man. Jameis Winston, the New York Giants quarterback in week 1, 2025, man. I'm going with him one time. I'm going to take the over 42.5, Cleveland outright. Not only is Jameis Winston going to help us get a better draft pick, he's going to be the starting quarterback next year. Agenda. It's agenda time, bro. It is agenda time, all right?
I want to go everything you just said. I really do. But I'm going to go
Listen, y'all. James.
Okay. I'll take the Cleveland Browns and Jameis Winston to win this game. Give me the under 42.5. Jameis throws a game-winning touchdown, and the Cleveland Browns move to 4-8.
That's what I like to hear.
We got a couple of questions to get to before we get you guys and gals out of here. Big shout out to everybody in the chat. We appreciate you guys as well. Let's see. I start a couple here. Big shout out to Ryan Schmier. Says, morning, guys. Which two should I start? Zay Flowers, Marvin Harrison,
Marvin and Jawannings.
I'm going to go Zay Flowers and Marvin Harrison. They talked about that they're going to specifically be trying to get Marvin Harrison involved this week. So give me Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers and Marvin.
I know y'all haven't settled in on a baby name yet. Maybe it's Marvin.
Marvin might be one.
Kind of fire. Be a one of one right there. Yeah. I'm with you, man. Zay Flowers, Marvin Harrison. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Who's Marvin Harrison?
I'm sorry, Marvison.
Thank you.
Marvison.
And speaking of Magic, shout out to Mr. Magic. Kyler or Jaden Daniels? That's a little tougher than Josh Allen for me.
Yeah. Give me Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, I'm going to double down. Give me Jaden Daniels as well. Big shout out to Mr. Magic. Appreciate you as always. And I think we don't this is I'm going to get to this one before we get out of here because I think this is always an interesting question. If you could only bet one game.
Ooh, that's a good question.
What is your sure bet? Now, are we talking just winner, Monique, or are we talking against the spread, or are we just talking money line? Let's say we have to do just let's say just money line, an outright winner.
Texans up against the Jaguars.
Yeah, I'll give you. I think I'll double down on that. Texans also. And let's say you had to pick one against let's say you had to pick one underdog to cover the spread.
The Browns.
Browns. Okay.
Yeah.
The plus 5.5. I like that one also. Yeah, I think we're in agreement here. I don't know. I might also take let's say if it has to be an underdog to cover.
The Bengals were favored, right?
Bengals were favored, yeah.
Steelers could be another one.
Yeah, Steelers could be another one. Also Philadelphia +3. I think that's a good one also. So I think
Eagles,
that's
that you just said that. If a team were to get blown out in that game early, it's going to be the Eagles because them slow starts that they've been getting off to.
Can't score early.
So I'm a little suspect about the Eagles, just a little bit. Maybe that's more reason why I picked the Baltimore Ravens to win that game. We should be out there right now, man. Them tailgates in Baltimore are.
Makes sense for sure. All right, we got one last question before we get you guys out of here. Big shout out to Marky Mark and Funky Bunch 219 checking in from Twitch. Do I start Pittman or James Conner at flex?
Start there. I'm going James Conner. Like I said, he just got the bag. And when dudes get the bag, they, all that criticism going around the league, like, why y'all paying James Conner? James Conner about to show you why he got paid today.
I'm gonna go Michael Pittman. Mark Andrews or
gotta understand. Hold on. We need a why because Anthony Richardson cannot throw the ball.
Because I said bench James Conner.
I don't mean you got to bench him over Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman, sorry, not it, man. Your boy has 2 games over 50%. He was like 6 of 26 last week. I'm a big Anthony Richardson fan.
Was it really 6 of 26?
It was something crazy, like 10 of 26, bro. He cannot throw it over 50%. Right, and I'm afraid to say that Shane Steichen might not be the guy for him.
Yeah. All right, we'll go James Conner to give you a little bit of leverage here. Mark Andrews or TJ Hockenson?
Give me Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews been balling out as of late.
Give me TJ Hockenson.
How's TJ been doing since coming back off IR?
Pretty good. It's like a 10 to 15 fantasy points in each game coming back.
Mark Andrews been doing the thing, man.
Yeah, but
back to playing that tough football.
That Philly defense is good. I like TJ Hockenson, and it's a PPR league. Hawk's going to get, I don't know, they're both probably around the same when it comes to receptions.
4 points, 11 points, 2 points, and 16 points in his last 4 for TJ Hockenson.
Mark Andrews is probably about the same thing.
Mark Andrews is 15. We'll start 4 weeks back. 18, 12, 3, and 15. Oh no, I take that back. Those are inaccurate. The last 4 games, 13, 2, 15, 3. Those were his last 4.
I'm going Hawk. Give me Hawk.
Going Hawk?
Hawk. And do I start?
I'm going Mark Andrews. Big game.
Yeah,
big time players defense. Make big time plays in big time games, man.
Okay, here we go. And does he start the tight end that you're not starting over the flex options? So would you start TJ Hockenson or Mark Andrews over James Conner and Michael Pittman?
Nope. Okay. And Pittman over Devontae, I would consider the last one. I would consider that because Devontae Adams, he has 1 touchdown since becoming a Jet.
Yeah.
But it's Anthony Richardson, man. He has had over a 50% completion percentage in only 2 games in his entire career. No.
Devontae
Not
Adams.
doing this Michael Pittman stuff. No. James Conner, Mark Andrews, man. Let's go.
I'm gonna.
How Mark not gonna start Mark Andrews? Mark, think about that, all right? Got to represent for your birth name here, brother. We're going Mark Andrews, James Conner. Not going Michael Pittman or what is TJ's first name? What is his real name? Tyler?
Thomas Jefferson.
I don't think so. That would be too long.
Thomas Jefferson Hawkinson.
Thomas Jefferson Hawkinson?
Oh man! Big shout out to Mark checking in from Twitch.
What is TJ's first name, bro?
I don't. It's probably.
Hold on. Thank God for Wikipedia, man.
What do you?
Thomas James. Thomas James.
I was close.
Thomas.
Look at that.
I told you. Mom Dukes was like, Jefferson's a little too long. Let's go James. We'll go Thomas James. There you go. One syllable.
Man, let me tell you, name game is a funky game, ladies and gentlemen. It's a funky game.
And you always got Marvison. It's fire.
It is.
Scorched the earth with that name right there.
We threw a wrench at Corey. He's like, so should I start Kyler over Anthony Richardson? You're killing me, bro. You just told me to play 8.
Listen, Kyler and Anthony Richardson is kind of a toss-up. You get a bad game from Kyler, you're going to be upset with Anthony Richardson on your bench. But I'll guarantee you this, neither one of those quarterbacks are likely to go over 25, 30 points. If one does, it might be Kyler. So you got some decisions to make, Corey. I gave you the information. I'm not a financial advisor or nothing like that up here, okay? I'd go AR, okay? In the matchups with you, I'd go AR. But I wouldn't be mad if you went Kyler. Kyler, you might have a game today.
Oh, man. It's going to be a fun day of football, ladies and gentlemen. Big shout out to everybody in the chat. We appreciate all the love and all the support. Make sure you guys are following us on Twitter at Tim Walk on Water 2, at Authentic, where you guys can find where we will be any given time. Check out Giant Overreaction Monday.
Yes, sir.
Should be a good one. And listen, we got a last minute, come in here from South Beach. Big shout out to our guy Lucas with the legendary Miami Dolphins 305 super chat. Looking for 2 anytime touchdowns on the day.
Saquon Barkley. I'll go with both running backs in that game. Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry. Yeah.
I'm not mad at either one of those. I'm going to go Bucky Irving. And I'm going to go Bucky Irving and Brian Robinson Jr. Give me Brian Robinson Jr. and Bucky Irving.
I'm going to remember this as I watch football today. Those are some interesting ones.
They are interesting ones for sure. And big shout out to Gregory, as always, in the chat, dropping those records, following all the games being played here on the parlay. Authentic. I'm going to take these people to the pearly gates.
Yes, sir. Good luck in all y'all fantasy games this week. Hopefully, y'all are pushing playoffs and trying to get to that bag one time. Y'all know how we end every podcast over here on Authentic in the Beard. Keep raising that bar. Keep living those dreams because the universe flows in Technicolor and surround sound. Rest in peace to the podcast GOAT, Combat Jack. And that's a wrap, y'all. We will catch y'all on Monday for the Giant Overreaction and on Tuesday for the Week 13 recap. Y'all be good, man. Peace.
Spike don't care.